Hello, welcome to a review of Chapter 2 of the fourth treatise, and the title for this chapter is Shared Vision. So we're following up on the idea from Chapter 1 that we've come to a time in our history when things are moving and changing. He calls it actually a polar reversal in this chapter. And he's telling us that a polar reversal is happening now. There's an energy shift that's occurring. And the way to describe this, outward seeking is turning inward, and internal discoveries are turning outward. So it used to be, well, in fact, he tells us in verse 2, where you once turned outward in your seeking and saw within what you perceived without, now you turn inward and reflect what you discover within outward. So if you look at the reversed, the normal thing, actually, so we're seeing that what happens within in the normal image here is whatever we look within to see how we're feeling, what's happening, how we're resonating to something, how we're vibrating to something. Does that seem right to me or not? So we're using our inner world, our inner knowledge as our basis. And whatever we find there then is reflected outward in the life that we live and the way that we carry ourselves in the world. Whereas before, we looked to the outside, to our culture, to books, to learning, to all of the input from the outside and what was expected of us. And we took that in, and then we tried to apply that to our thoughts and our feelings that were happening on an inner level. So the reversal has now happened, where we're not trying to comply with what's out there, but we're trying to reflect what's in here. So he is coming to Jesus and what the whole reason why Jesus was here. And some people have an issue with the idea of Jesus as a man. And if it's helpful for you, if that's something that you have a conflict with, since there's only one, just think of Jesus as the part of yourself that awakened already and walked the earth. So Jesus came to, one, demonstrate the way, and to serve as a bridge between the forgotten self and the remembered self. He came to reveal a God of love. Remember, in the Old Testament, it was a God of punishment, a God to be feared. And he came to usher in a time of the Holy Spirit, which was actually communication with God, so that even though we were relying on outward authorities, there was still the ability to have messages that we received from that God energy on an individual level, as well as what we learned on an outward level. So those are the things that he ushered in his time. So that there's actually began this this third dimensional becoming aware of my experience as an individual self, and becoming aware of the fact that that individual self has a spiritual component to it. So that's basically what Jesus came here to introduce. He reminds us that no one is better or more than another. Evolution did not make you better. In other words, you aren't better than your ancestors were, and you probably were your ancestors, so who cares, right? Verse 8, you must realize that if you were to see into the minds and hearts of any human from any time with true vision, you would see the accomplished self there. That seed, the very basis of your self, which is the one, a particle of that one glorious creative God energy, has always been there. And verse 9 tells us, all are chosen with love and without judgment. And I'm just continuing with the text here because he takes us from like one step to another. Verse 11, being first does not mean being better. So if we're the first to move into this new place, which we are, that doesn't mean we're better than the people who came before. Verse 13, thus you must examine your intention even now and remove from it all ideas that were of the old way. You would not be here if you were still interested in glorifying the ego, but you are also not yet completely certain of yourself, and in your uncertainty, still subject to the patterns of thought of the old. So the idea that what he's trying to get at here is, so you're awakening, so you're understanding that you're more than the character that you're playing in this world. Don't for a moment think that makes you any better than anyone who is living or anyone who has ever lived. It doesn't make you special, because the same energy, the same value, the same infinite worthiness is present in everyone and has always been present in everyone. These patterns must be consciously dropped so they don't impede your new awareness. If you take on this whole awakening process as part of your persona, and you've probably seen people do it, I certainly have, where you may have the persona of a ballerina, or you may have the persona of a spiritual seeker, and everything you do contributes to that persona. If you look at this as part of your persona, you're missing it. You're just totally taking something beautiful and trying to package it in an old form, and it's not going to work. So he invites us then to observe. Who you are now has always been there. So if you just check in with yourself, and this is a meditation this is where I usually start my meditations, and it's where I start the meditation with my groups as well, where we just really go within and find that part of yourself that has always been there. From the time you were a baby, to the time that you were in grammar school, to when you were a teenager, that sense of I am, here I am, this is me, that has always been there. And that's your actual identity. And then he says, observe the Christ in others also, even if they don't know it in themselves. This is not about observing potential, it's about observing what is. It's already there. So that place that you go to when you are looking for what part of myself has always been there for me, what part of myself has been constant, that sense of self, that presence and awareness, that's the same place where everybody goes. That's the root of everyone's character. And as you look at the people in this picture on this slide, I mean, this is a great cross section of people. Imagine that every single person that you see has that same sense of self, that same awareness, that same rootedness that you have. And that's because there's only one basic energy going on here. Their holiness only needs to be observed. This is not a future holiness, but a now holiness. No faking, hoping, or projecting. So I don't look at this woman and think, boy, if she got her act together, she could really be cool. No, this is about looking at her and actually observing, being able to connect with that sense of presence, that sense of self that she carries, that resonates with my own sense of self. Verse 25, a new relationship now exists between the physical and spiritual. It's not an indirect relationship, but a direct relationship. And you are becoming aware of its existence. So this is a relationship that it's really gonna grow. You're gonna foster. Because you are here in this game, not because you made a mistake, not because you're a victim of something, not because something went wrong in the whole plan. You are here intentionally because you want to experience that connection within the physical experience. So you are within the physical experience, becoming aware of the fact that you are spirit, that you are a vibrational and energetic field is what you actually are. And that vibrational energetic field is having the experience of being a human, being in a body and playing a separate character. You are not the separate character. It's your hologram that you have created, the program you have created in order to have this experience as you actually rest in the field of awareness that you are. What's more, every day is a creation and is also holy. Every day is holy. Verse 21, not one day is meant to be lived within a struggle with what it brings. The power to observe what is relates to everything that exists with you, including the days that make up your life in time and space. Observing what is unites you with the present, in that it unites you with what is rather than what you perceive to be. So in the past, we may have walked through our lives feeling like we were navigating like a video game where I think of Tetris, where, you know, things fall from the sky and we have to avoid them. You know, we have to navigate. We have to play the game skillfully, be on our toes. Things keep coming at us to get us or to bring us down or to challenge us. And how, if we're successful, we measure that by how we're able to avoid all the pitfalls. This is completely opposite of that. There's a recognition that this is a holy day. I have programmed this day. And every detail has been very artfully programmed for me on purpose, because every detail of this day is exactly what I wanted to experience. So when we make that flip, that polar shift ourselves from within ourselves, the struggle's gone. And now it becomes like, wow, okay, this is like watching something unfold. I'm not moving around trying to avoid. I'm right here in it, watching and observing what's happening on the outside and what's happening on the inside. That's what he's talking about when he says observing what is. When you join with what is, your heart and mind join. When your heart and mind join, the physical world and the spiritual world join. When the worlds join, separation is over. So when you're coming at it from the victim in the video game point of view, the mind is in control. The mind is saying, "Ooh, this is out to get me. I'm avoiding that. How can I plot this better? How can I plan this better?" And the heart is just kind of coming along for the ride. When your heart and mind are joined, your heart recognizes, wait a minute, this is actually beautiful. I want to see what's here for me. I want to see where I might be contracting. I want to notice what's unfolding in my world, because this is the key right here. What's happening to me in this moment, whatever that is the key to my ascension. This is a direct relationship with God. Again, God is the creative love energy, the essence of all that is. And a direct relationship with the seen and the unseen. So you're coming back into balance. You're not just living in a world where you are in contact with what is seen. You are looking at what is seen and what is unseen, and understanding that there's no barrier between them. There's no difference. They are in harmony. They are working in conjunction. And the master programmer is you. So this is just another way of pointing out what this looks like. So the old way on the left sees a separate world only, which was created by a separate mind. Whether that's in the old way, we thought that was God, as in a power outside of ourselves, or if you didn't believe in God, fate, chance, whatever, created this separate world where the mind functions here and the heart is just something that kind of gets in the way sometimes. Now on the right, when the mind and heart are joined, it sees truth as it is in this moment. So it's not fighting this moment. It's actually seeing it and joining in the seeing. There's a shared vision that happens between the mind and the heart. So the mind now becomes a servant of the heart, and they work together. You have already begun to see unity with all related to the whole. True vision is seeing relationship and union. So relationship and union, relationship between all the things that happen on the inside and the outside. And union, recognizing that everything's been working in harmony all along. Expecting revelation. So what this is talking about is when you are in harmony, when you're not fighting or struggling against whatever's coming down the pipe in your life, you expect it to be revealed to you, to show you, well, what's this doing here? And how do I feel about this? And what's my vibratory level right now? And each encounter is relationship and purpose. So encounter with other people, encounter with every moment, encounter with each situation, encounter with what's going on within you. And this is revealed in each moment. It's not something that you can plan ahead or plot out or use your mind for. It's actually revealed instead of learned. And this treatise is going to get farther into that. Verse 29, you must remember that you are now called to see without judgment. To see without judgment is to see truly. You need not look for good or bad, but only need be steadily aware that you can only see in one of two ways, with love or fear. So if we take that down to a practical level, let's say that something simple happens, like you bang your hand on the side of a desk. And in the past, you would judge that as being bad. Ow! Why did I do that? Okay, now we're seeing with judgment that that's a bad thing. So when we are looking at something with love instead of fear, we might bang our hand on the side, and instead of immediately jumping to judge ourselves or judge whomever left that there, or trying to find a place to assign blame because it's a bad thing and somebody needs to be blamed for it because we're afraid that we've done a bad thing or a bad thing has happened, and we have to use the mind to try to prevent it from happening again, basically. That's why it's coming from fear. But when we look at it with love, it's like, oh, I see that hurts. Oh, and I'm sorry that I've hurt myself in that way. I experienced the pain. And I just allow whatever is to be there and observe it. There's no need to judge it as good or bad. There's no need to try to use my mind to fix it. I just allow it to be as it is. Verse 23, learning to see anew is the precursor to learning to create anew. Only from a shared vision of what is can you begin to produce unity and relationship through unity and relationship. So what this is talking about is that we are going to, once we've mastered seeing things clearly, then we're going to step into our role as actual conscious creators, which is what this entire fourth treatise is preparing us for. So that when we see that everything that is happening to us is neutral, it's just a circumstance, And we stop trying to control the circumstances or learn from the circumstances or take our cue from our circumstances or fix our circumstances. And we just allow the circumstances to be as they are. That brings us to the position of neutral, where once we have mastered that in our lives, from there we're going to be able to actually step into the shoes of a conscious creator and live in the world as the Christ. And that's when the fun really begins. So it's exciting, and I so appreciate you listening to both A Course of Love and to my take on it. So I'm sending you great love and looking forward to catching up with you again in chapter 3.